Hello there. Welcome to my review of Columbo Season 13, Episode 2, A Trace of Murder. First broadcast on the 15th of May 1997 on ABC. Written by new-to-Columbo writer Charles Kipps and directed by returning director Vincent McEverty. The episode begins with a blowhard cowboy type in the mould of Bo Williamson from Blueprint for Murder, named Clifford Calvert, and played by Barry Corbin, complaining about the troubles of being super rich to an unimpressed bartender, before his wife Kathleen, played by a returning Sheridan Azey, arrives to ask him to return to the party they're at. He's rude to her, and when they return he berates a man who's suing him before he punches the same man.
There are certain financial irregularities.
Don't you dare threaten me, you little worm!
Back at their mansion, the Calverts continue to argue before Kathleen storms off. So far, it looks like Clifford is going to be our victim, and Columbo's real-life wife is going to get a chance at playing the murderer. To reinforce this narrative, we then see Kathleen in bed with her lover, Patrick Kinsley, played by David Rash. They lament their situation, and Kathleen suggests murder, which Kinsley shoots down.
If anything happened to Clifford, do you know who the prime suspect would be? You.
Which then gives Kathleen a new idea.
What if we killed Howard and framed Clifford?
Kill the man who's suing Calvert, Howard Seltzer, and frame Clifford for it. This is a really fresh approach to an episode, as it's Columbo. We think we know who the villain is going to be and who the victim's going to be based on the setup. And the story leads us that way right up until the point that it doesn't. We think Clifford's fight with Seltzer is merely character building, but then at the last minute we get this neat switch that really makes you sit up and pay more attention. It also removes all sympathy from Kathleen, as she's fully prepared to kill a completely innocent man to get what she wants, in a way that takes suspicion away from her. Kathleen takes Clifford's gun and one of his cigars and hands them off to Kinsley, who makes his way to Seltzer's house. He gets into Seltzer's on a false pretense and makes small talk that gives away that Seltzer's alone, so he shoots him, leaving behind a cigar end and wiping up his prints and vacuuming the carpet to collect some cat hair, which he takes with him before setting off the house's panic alarm to alert the police. He then disposes of the gun, and we return to the Calvert estate, where he hands off the cat hair to Kathleen to deposit onto Clifford.
This isn't so bad, is it? We used to dance like this all the time, remember?
Columbo arrives at the crime scene and goes about his work, just as the forensics expert arrives.
Hi. Patrick Kinsley, LAPD Forensics Unit.
Lieutenant Columbo.
Pleasure to meet you.
None other than Patrick Kinsley. He manages to deal with Columbo without raising suspicion until he notices the cigar end he left is not where he left it, and he can't find it. Something Columbo notices but makes no more of. The next day, Columbo goes to see Seltzer's lawyer, Tracy Rose, and they have a fun exchange before she tells him about Seltzer's legal trouble with Calvert.
I know he wasn't married. Does he have an ex-wife or a girlfriend?
That's a rather sexist question. Men kill far more often than women.
Ex-spouses and spurned lovers. They kill more than anybody.
It seems that so far everything is going Kathleen and Kinsley's way. Columbo goes to see the Calverts, and Clifford is unable to find his gun, which again is exactly as planned, as is his lack of alibi when Columbo does his investigation. The photos of the wedding they were attending proves he was there, but after the murder was committed. At the crime lab, Kingsley is troubled by the missing cigar end, and with Columbo there, tries to guide him further towards Clifford. Kingsley goes back to the crime scene to look for the cigar end, and Columbo turns up, but Kingsley easily explains it away. Seltzer's cat finds the missing cigar end, and Kingsley makes a fatal mistake. Rather than just be relieved he found it, he tells Columbo,
That's why I came back. I knew I saw something in that ashtray the night of the murder. What, it looks like a cigar end, huh?
Columbo also seems to think this is suspicious as he returns to question Clifford about the cigar, but also pockets one of Clifford's cigar ends and confirms his suspicions. This new evidence does give him enough for a search warrant, and while Kathleen and Kingsley think this will give Columbo enough evidence to arrest Clifford, which it will, it also puts Columbo on the right track. Rather than pursue his suspicions directly, he uses Kingsley to suggest that if Clifford didn't do it, maybe Kathleen did, to protect her husband from the lawsuit. He then arranges for both of them to question Kathleen, and Columbo notices something that gives him the last piece of the puzzle.
Husband didn't do it. Then who?
At this point, I think it's worth saying that there's something a little off about Columbo in this episode. There are the usual staples of him spotting things that others have missed, having his breakfast egg, being underestimated by the killers, etc. But there are also a few things that seem a little odd. In his first appearance in the episode, he hands out bananas to the other officers for no reason, and he's obsessed with finding Seltzer's cat, which story-wise leads to them eventually discovering the cigar end, but from a character perspective makes no sense. But last and most importantly is his reaction to Kathleen and Kingsley giving themselves away. Falk plays it very big, like it's come out of nowhere and he can't believe it. But not only is this very un-Columbo-like, it also doesn't make sense, as he's been subtly directing the pair to where he wants them, in the way they thought they were doing to him. He shouldn't be shocked by discovering this, he should just be confirming his theory. There's a second confirmation of this prior relationship, which then leads him to exclaim aloud what we already knew and what he should have already known.
These two know each other. They know each other well.
He then goes to Clifford and explains he doesn't think he did it, and why the cigar cut was all wrong compared with how Clifford cuts his. This could be further over-explanation, but here there's a crucial difference, as Columbo is able to discover the piece of evidence he needs to prove Clifford's innocence through this conversation. And he's able to let Kingsley know he thinks Kathleen is guilty, and let Kathleen know that he thinks Kingsley is guilty. He has wedding photos of Clifford before and after Kathleen planted the cat ears, and uses them to play the two off each other, and it works. We then get a very odd scene where Columbo goes back to Barney's, where he took Kathleen and Kingsley to confirm their relationship, and he proceeds to explain exactly how he got to his conclusion. Kingsley inadvertently passed the sweetener to Kathleen, unprompted, when he wasn't supposed to know her, and then later on opened the front door seat of the car to her, knowing that she got car seat sick if she sat in the back. This is such an odd way to end, as it feels like this was very much set out for us when it happened. While the sweetener giveaway was a little more subtle, the car door business definitely wasn't. And it makes no sense why he's explaining this to Barney, rather than either the killers or another cop. I can't really understand why they didn't have him explain it to Kinsley after he had been caught out. Overall, this episode is enjoyable, but up to a point. It feels like it has 80% of a great episode, but the other 20% really drags it down into some weird choices, strange performances, and odd plot points. It's a real shame, as it makes the watching experience become a bit of a mess and quite forgettable after such a strong start with a great premise. It all feels a little too undercooked, with some themes that go nowhere while others directly feed into the plot, and a plot that over and under explains things at times. The ending in particular is the most unforgivable element, as it's the last thing you're left with, and that's really very messy indeed, just this 5 or 6 minute scene of exposition. For that reason, I can't really give this episode more than a 3 out of 5, even if it had the promise of being a 5 out of 5. Thank you. Goodbye.